welcome, which you may well need, because if you're in Joburg as I am at the moment, you'll have noticed that summer came and went, and we've gone back to what feels like spring, or maybe even the tail end of winter. I'm sitting here in my Lego room with my jacket on. A very warm welcome. This is another edition of the Coaching Hour, brought to you in partnership with Coaches Network South Africa. My name's Paul Rotherham. I'm joined once again by the lovely ladies Mary and Mareka, who are partners in our Coaches Network business, and of course my colleagues and friends. Well, my mom-in-law, in fact, is Mary. So we're kind of like family by now. We've been doing this for so long. And I think you are family as well if you're used to watching this. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you for listening. If you're not watching, but you are listening, we appreciate it. Mareka, we have a wonderful guest lined up today.
We do. It is such a pleasure to welcome Debbie Wheal with us today. It's the first time being a guest, so welcome. She is an unconventional coach with a deep passion for people, growth, and transformation. For nearly 12 years, she has led her own practice, adapting her approach to meet each client exactly where they are. And I'm very excited to talk to you about today's topic, Debbie. And we're talking about healing and integrating your shadow side. Welcome,
Yes.
Debbie. Nice to have you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's an absolute honor to be here. Thank you. I appreciate the invite.
It's a pleasure. Now, before we get into our topic, please tell our listeners and who's watching, who is Debbie Wheal and how did you become the unconventional coach?
Conventional. I love the story. I am very blessed to live my passion and my purpose every day of my life. And that is for seeing the growth and the transformation in people that I coach. How I became the unconventional coach is a funny story. I was doing fairly recently, a few years ago. I can't remember when now. I'm too old to remember years. I was studying my ICF accredited coaching program through psyche, and I would very often challenge the lecturers about certain of the core competencies from the ICF. And one of the core competencies is that you don't lead the coaching process. You allow the individual to lead the coaching process. Now, predominantly for some reason, my coaching practice has been really ring-fenced to the audit world in South Africa. So with Big Four clients, and at the moment, the fifth biggest client is my biggest client. Fifth biggest audit firm is my biggest client, and very process-driven people. We've got auditors, we've got CAs, we've got actuaries, we've got quantitative people. They need a process. You can't say to them, come to a coaching session and come with what you want to talk about, because they don't know what they want to talk about. Their entire lives are quite linear. So on a particularly cold night where I was indeed frustrated, and I was indeed drinking out of a mug and online, I again posed the question and posed how I can honor that core competency, but still have my processes, my programs for my clients, because that's what they are really working with extremely well. And the lecturer was so frustrated with me that eventually she said, Debbie, maybe you shouldn't call yourself a coach. I thought, oh, wow, okay. So I put myself on mute, put my camera off. Of course, my phone blew up. My peers were all messaging me, are you okay? I said, oh, I'm fine.
I
just
love
giving
that.
food for thought. And my business was already a few years old, and I just thought, I'm running a coaching firm. I can't not call myself a coach. I played around with the consultant or this or that. No, I'm a coach. But let's put it out there. I'm an unconventional coach. And with that, I gave myself so much freedom to have pink hair, to have tattoos, and when I speak to my youngsters, I do say to them, please don't copy me. Don't go and do the pink hair and the tattoos just yet. My reputation can actually handle it, because my reputation has been 54 years in the making, not all working years, but age years. So my reputation can take it. And it gave me so much freedom. So I am the unconventional coach. I can coach when somebody just wants to speak about a particular goal that they want to reach or a particular growth point, but I do work a lot with processes, and I love to challenge. I love to research. And that's how we got to today's topic, where I'm talking about Carl Jung, who, to be honest, it changed my life. It completely changed my life, getting to learn about Carl Jung and doing a deep dive into Carl Jung's work.
I
That's how
have
I'm
to ask, Madame Unconventional Coach, straight away, I have to ask, what is a
Yes.
conventional coach then by definition? Because obviously the person who said to you, sorry, Debs, you don't sound like you're a coach, which I can
Yeah.
understand is a massive knock when you see yourself as a coach. You've been running a business as a coach, you've been coaching people, you've studied
Yeah.
coaching. I mean, I'm just
Yes.
thinking about us.
Yes.
I think Mareka and Mary, they are most
Yes.
definitely coaches. I'm not. But it does beg the question, what is a coach? Because all of our guests have been so diverse. I'm trying to
Yes.
put them in one box, and I don't think you
Yeah.
actually could.
That was my point, Paul. And look, it was honors level. I was invited to come back and study at master's level, but by then I was done. I was like, oh, God, I'm not doing this anymore. But apparently at master's level, you're now allowed, according to the ICF, to create your own processes. But at honors level, you don't. You've got to follow the core competencies at the ICF. And I'm not, please, if anybody from the ICF is listening, I'm not ditching the ICF. I'm not being rude. I'm just saying how it didn't fit in with me. But you know, the ICF has got a very, very particular way that you do coaching, and they want you to do it that way. And it didn't suit me. And it doesn't suit my clients. And what I also did to test this notion was that I ask my clients now when I'm onboarding a new client, I say to them, would you like to be in control of this process? Which actually, let me just recant that everybody's always in control of their own coaching program. I'm not in control of their growth and their coaching program. But do you want to bring your topics to the conversation, or would you like me to help you along and take you through a bit of a process so that you get to understand what coaching is about? Then what happens is that they then bring their coaching topics to the coaching session. But to take people that are coaching is so unfamiliar to take them and give them the freedom and say to them, okay, what are we going to talk about today? People are like, what am I doing here? What am I supposed to be doing here? Especially in corporate. And I have to put that in. A lot of the people that I work with haven't sought out a coach because they know that they need a coach or they want a coach. A lot of the people that I work with are nominated. It's to help them grow through the organizations that they are in. So there's a lot of that. You know, people don't really know why they're there. A lot of those people. I fortunately don't get too many hostages, so that works well for me as well.
I've just Googled very quickly, and I'm sure Mary and Mareka have questions and would like to jump in. I've just Googled the definition of a coach. And a coach is, I quote, a person who provides training and guidance to support another individual or group in achieving specific personal or professional goals. And that really is the essence of a coach. And so I think what I'm hearing you say here is that ultimately, regardless of how you do it and what methodology you're using,
Yes,
that
yes,
outcome pretty much
yes,
sums up what a coach is doing.
yes.
But I agree
And
with
that was
you,
my
and this
belief.
is in no way to knock any bodies or people or individuals or councils. But I guess if you choose to do something in your own way and it
Yes.
works, you're still a coach. Just my 10 cents worth.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. But I love being the unconventional coach. So I'm still going to carry on being that. Sorry, Mary.
No, I think that's just a name,
Mm,
to set you apart,
mm,
because at the end of the day, the outcome is what's important. And that's what the
100%.
coach does.
Yes.
A
Yes.
coach leads you to an outcome.
Yes.
And you are
Yes.
not, like you said, you are not the fixer-upper. You
No.
just show the light to the next step, and then it's up to them to step.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know that it's so important what you just said. Very often when I've been working with a client and they're working towards promotion, for instance, and I'm very clear with everybody, you take responsibility for your own career. You don't just sit around and wait to be recognized for the work that you do, and you then get promoted. It doesn't work that way. Yes, there are in different corporates, there's different ways of getting to the next level, but you take responsibility for your progress. And so often I get the most amazing gratitude, which fills my cup, when people say, thank you, I've reached associate director, I've reached director level, I've reached partner, or I've reached manager, or whatever it is. Thank you. You were an integral part of this, and I owe it to you. I always say, it's my pleasure, but please understand you did the work. All I did was ask you the difficult questions. And you did the work. I don't do the work for people. My role is to research and find out different methodologies that are going to relate to different people, that are going to bring out the best potential in them. They do the work. So I take the thank you, I take it, but I do point out they do the work. And likewise, if we're going nowhere in coaching as well, I then need to point out to that person that they need to commit as well. They need to put in that hard work. And it is hard work. It's difficult work. As we'll go through just now, I've got some slides that I've prepared for you. It's difficult work. It's not easy. It's not like, wow, this is so uplifting. So, and when I introduce myself to clients, I say to them, there are going to be days that you absolutely love your sessions with me. There's going to be days where you're going to think, what am I doing talking to this woman? And why did I sign up for this? Because if we're doing it properly, you're going to be uncomfortable at some stage.
Yeah. So Debbie, you said you have some slides for us.
Yes.
Let's get into them. I can't wait.
Okay, good. So I'm going to be talking about Carl Jung. If my computer can cooperate, it would be fabulous. Oh no, it's user error. There we go. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about Carl Jung. And for anybody that's listening that does know a lot about Carl Jung, there are lots of aspects of Carl Jung's thinking that I don't subscribe to. But being a researcher and being somebody who's passionate about different methodologies, different ways of thinking about things, I take what I need from different people, give them the credit, and then I adapt it. So I've reimagined his model of the psyche. It was the first time that I was introduced to a way of thinking that gave me personally clarity on how we function. And so that's why it's really, really important to me. I have got his red book. I have listened to, I don't know how many hours of lectures of his. There is some of his stuff that I think, gee, yeah, okay, no, that's a bit weird. But certainly not as weird as some of the other philosophers or psychoanalysts that I've listened to. So this statement changed my life, hands down. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. It changed my life. I had no idea that I would land up where I am now. I come from humble beginnings, and I do know that when I was very young, I didn't want to stay where I was first planted. And I knew that I was going to get myself out of that environment. I didn't know how. And it's been a journey. Of course, life is a journey, and it's a continual growth journey. But I remember the day I read that, and it was like something had opened up in me. So that's when I also started looking at the model of the psyche as Carl Jung has it. So he has the outer world and the inner world. So the outer world is our ecosystems that we function in, and we have a persona, which we show to everybody. It is, now, Carl Jung calls it a mask. I don't necessarily see it as a mask. I personally see it as a different facet of ourselves, because we are multifaceted human beings. I'm going to show you, I am showing you now in this podcast, a certain persona of mine, which is different from 5:30 this morning when I was trying to get my daughter out of bed to get her to school. So that persona we adapt so that we can integrate into our ecosystems. Now, it is the first step, and Carl Jung is very clear about, and I'll talk about it just now, that we don't stop here. We need to go deeper. Behind the persona is the ego. And again, everybody normally thinks about the ego as, oh, that person's got such a big ego, I can't stand him or her, or that ego on that person. But the reality is that we've all got an ego. It's whether it's in a healthy state or an unhealthy state, which I'll take you through. The self, according to Carl Jung, encompasses all of this, including the shadow side. Now, I don't go into all of this other stuff. I personally have used persona, ego, self, and shadow, and I've taken self out and I've used it as a separate pillar. So what am I talking about? Let me show you. Oh, sorry. Before I do that, another quote of his that just blew my mind. And if you guys want to Google it and go and have a look, Carl Jung has got the most amazing quotes. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And I'm going to tell you a very personal story just now, and you will see how by me making something that was completely unconscious, conscious, I changed the route of my life. And when we have our unconscious world directing our life, that's when the self-limiting thoughts come in. That's when your self-sabotage, and it becomes self-fulfilling prophecies. So it's about doing this work where we look and we see what is sitting in the unconscious. So how do we do that? This is how I have reimagined Carl Jung's world and his work. It's called individuation. And it means that this is deeply personal. It means, and before I even started looking into Carl Jung's work, I always knew as a coach, everything starts with self. It starts with you. It's how you work with your environment. It's how you regulate yourself. It's how well you know yourself. Before I was talking about Carl Jung, I used to talk about the rock of self-knowledge. It's like a vault where you have all the information that you have about yourself in that rock, and we pivot on it. And when we get knocked down because somebody says, Debbie, you shouldn't call yourself a coach, you can stand back up, dust yourself off, because you know what's in there. But there's all sorts of things that are in there that we should know that are in there. But we only want to see the good stuff, right? We only want to possibly see the lacquer stuff. I'll never forget, I asked a client the other day, who are you? And hummed and hawed a little bit, and then he said to me, well, I've got good bones. So it's looking further than the good bones. So looking at the persona, as I said, it's Carl Jung called it the mask that we use, but it's, for me, it's a facet of us that we pivot to show different sides. We're going to speak to a CEO differently to what we're going to speak to our children or our partners or our friends. If we don't self-regulate like that, then that's a problem. Now, just sitting in the persona is also an issue, because if you become, if your whole identity is on your persona and you haven't done the deeper work, you're going to be, it's almost like an actor who becomes typecast. You know, the baddies or the goody two-shoes, where you see a baddie that's been typecast in a role that doesn't suit them according to what you've seen them to be. They look out of place. It looks weird. So when you become very attached to one particular persona, it means that you are living in the role that you're playing, and you haven't done this deeper work. You're being typecast. So that's persona. It is how we interact with the conscious world. Sitting behind that, we have the ego. And everybody, as I said, has an ego. It's the conduit between the conscious world and the unconscious world. And we have, and I'm going to go through it just now, we have two ego states, healthy and unhealthy. And before I was aware of all of this, I used to say to my clients, arrogance, because often in coaching, people say, when I'm talking about positive self-talk, they're like, oh, but I don't want to be arrogant. You can't make me arrogant, Debbie. Like, arrogance is an unhealthy ego state. I used to call it a fragile ego state, and now I call it an unhealthy ego state. I'm not going to make you arrogant, because that then my work is only beginning if you're going to become arrogant. So that's an ego state. It's being aware and accepting that we've all got an ego. A little while ago, I walked into a boardroom and it's had on a sign that said, leave your ego outside. And I challenged the CEO and I said, we can't do that. It's integral to who we are. That's ego. And your ego influences your persona. So whatever's happening in your ego state is going to influence what's happening in your persona. Now, self. I've taken it from encompassing all of it into its own little pillar because we are so molded into who we think we should be, who we've been told we are or we're not, that we very often become a version of ourselves that we don't even recognize. And that happens at school. We've got to fall into line. We've got to have our hair a certain way. We've got to have X number of marks. We've got to, whatever, we are molded. That sense of self becomes something that's quite different to what we actually are. And this is where I work with people. I ask them that uncomfortable question, who are you? Who are you? And I always get well, I was born, me personally, I was born in Zimbabwe, and we came here when I was really young, and then I went to school, and then I did this, and I actually studied that, and now I'm here. I'm like, great, that's where you're born and what you did. Still not who are you? I want to know who you are. And people say, but give me some guidelines. I'm like, no, I can't give you the guidelines. You need to say, who are you? We don't spend time looking at who we are, understanding who we are, describing who we are. And then we also have that element of, don't get too big for your boots. Don't brag or boast. And people say, well, I can't tell you my good stuff because that's me boasting. Oh my gosh, no, it's not you boasting. So the self is really, really important that we get to know who we are. Otherwise, we are on autopilot.
So what do you think? What is the answer? Does everybody have the same answer when they realize who they are?
How do you mean the same answer?
So if I had to ask you, who are you?
Me, yes. I am a passionate, robust, resilient, loving, kind human being who is larger than life and large, and enjoy having fun, love my work, full of nonsense. That's who I am. So everybody has different things because they mark their success on different things. I don't mark my success on anything other than being who I am and being authentic to that. I've been told, Mary, my whole life, you're too much, you're over the top, shush, calm down. And I was a child of the 70s and the 80s. So you can imagine, children were seen and not heard. Now this one, that didn't work for me, but I tried my absolute hardest. But when you are able to be yourself and to be too much, to be over the top, it's fabulous, but it comes with responsibility. I can't just be over the top in the places that I work at. I need to still maintain my professionalism, set boundaries, absolutely, set boundaries, etc. So again, that's when we go to the persona. I need to know which persona I can show to whom. But the core that needs to run through all of this is authenticity. And it's hilarious because I don't know if he'll listen to this or not. My brother was visiting about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, and we were chatting. I was really tired, and I got a bit snarky with him, and I just said something, and he says, well, that's a bit dramatic. And I was like, yeah, it is, because I am dramatic. I'm the perfect drama queen. But I've learned how to regulate it. There's self-acceptance there, and there's self-authorization to be me. But also,
as long as you don't hurt another human being.
Exactly, 100%. That is the core. If nothing else, be kind. No, that is absolutely the core. Yeah. And so moving on from that very poignant point, Mary, the shadow side is where the hurt is. The shadow side is where we've dumped everything we don't want to know about ourselves, and we don't want other people to know about ourselves. And it's called shadow because we carry it around with us. There's everything in there, every piece of shame, humiliation, every time I've been told to shut up, every time I've been told that whatever, I'm too much, or every time I failed at something, like 2 failed marriages behind me. That's okay. That's not even in the shadow side. That's in the conscious side. But this shadow side, it's all that hurts. Now, if we don't do the work, we do hurt other people. It comes out because the shadow influences your sense of self, influences your ego, influences your persona, and it comes out there. So let me tell you a little story. I went to school in 1976, and in those days, you went straight from the streets, playing barefoot in the streets, to school. There were 2 things that you needed for school readiness. Number 1, you had to know how to write your name, and number 2, you had to know your telephone number off by heart, which I still know, 725-290. And that was it. And what they did was they gave every 5-year-old, remember in the 70s, we went to school at 5, the year you turn 5, the year you turn 6, sorry, the year you turn 6, I was 5, they gave us an IQ test. Now, it only happened that the IQ test that was administered to me by my mother's sister, my aunt. And she had done her 2 children's IQ tests, and she had done my brother and mine. And she managed to tell the entire family that out of all 4 IQ tests, I rated lowest on the IQ tests. I had the lowest IQ. Now, can you imagine what that does to a child? I didn't know anything about the IQ bell curve. I didn't know where I sat on that bell curve. I didn't know if I was just under genius or actually just not even going to do anything in my life. I had no idea. But it was so humiliating and it was so hurtful that it guided my life. It 100% guided my life. When I was presented with a maths problem, I was like, well, I can't do this because I'm stupid. Of course I can't do this. I don't understand this. I absolutely don't. And I remember the schooling in the 70s was great. I can say that because I don't think many of the teachers are around anymore. But I remember going to my maths teacher with something. It was a something. And I was terrified of her, absolutely terrified. And I put my workbook down on her desk and I said to her, ma'am, I don't understand this. And I knew there was a test coming up, so I knew I had to get a grip. And she said, what part of it don't you understand? And I burst into tears and I said, all of it. She picked up our book, she threw it across the classroom, and she said, if you can't be bothered to listen to my last 2 weeks of lessons, I can't be bothered to help you before the test. I remember it word for word. I had to go and retrieve my maths book and stand on my chair for the rest of the lesson. So obviously in standard 7 in the 80s, or grade 9 now, standard 7, when they said, you suck at maths, let's drop maths, I'm like, hallelujah. Please, I'm really not that intelligent. So it really did. It influenced how I thought about myself. It influenced my career choices. And it was only when I had a few people in my life that entered my life, 2 in particular, that actually said, but why do you keep saying you're stupid? You're not stupid. They started challenging me on my self-talk, how I was viewing myself, how I could limit myself. And I would say, no, I can't do that career because I'm not, no, I can't do that, I can't do that. And they started challenging me. And then I started realizing, hang on a second, I need to look inside and see, why have I got this idea that I'm stupid? And let me tell you, even after so much work, when I was studying at honors level, there was still that smidgen of me that was like, can I do this? This is honors level. Can I actually do this? Because I still don't know where I am on this bell curve. So it directs your life. And this is where we need to do the work. It's so important. It's uncomfortable. I don't want to think of myself as stupid. I don't anymore. I'm not stupid. I managed to get through honors level. I wrote 4. This is my proudest moment in academia, and will be because I'm not going to venture there again. But I wrote 4 applied psychology academic papers, and I got distinctions for all 4. So very happy. I am not stupid.
Yeah, yeah. Isn't it sad though, how we can meet people in our lives who literally can shape the rest of our life? And very often it's unintentional. People don't even realize what they have said or how they've behaved. But as humans, I suppose we need to look within ourselves and ask the question, should we be allowing others to determine
100%.
our value? And the answer to that, of course, is no. But we all do
Absolutely.
it. We put
Yes.
ourselves in boxes. It's like
Yes.
the restaurant game where you can have 100 people served, 99 of them enjoy a wonderful meal, great service. The one person who doesn't talks about it, and that's the one that you remember out of the 100. And I think it's the same through life. Somebody can compliment us every day, but that one day where
100%.
they haven't, that's what we recall. And that's dreadful. That shapes your life and brings in all these
100%.
self-limiting beliefs, and it's all rubbish. It's untrue.
Do you know, Paul, I'm so blessed. I work with highly intelligent people, which again boggles my brain. From, as I said, actuaries to quants to auditors to CAs. I have a handful, and I find it mostly in my quants and in my actuaries, that when they have feedback, and there's a lot of feedback in corporate, when they have feedback, they sift through all the good stuff. They don't even read it, and they find those growth areas. Then they come running to me and they say, okay, now you see here, this is where we need to work. You know, that's like getting 95% for something, and then somebody asking you, but what happened to the last 5%? And I do it, and I drive people crazy, my clients crazy, but I do it. I say to them, can I have all your feedback? And I sit and I purposefully read it all to them. They squirm in their seats because I read all the good stuff. Because we are hardwired to look at that bad stuff. However, we also throw it in the back there, and it gets locked away. So we'll look at it momentarily. Maybe we'll do a little bit of work on it, but then it gets hard. So then we just throw it into the shadow side. Like, I'll deal with it another day. And that's because we work from a base of fear. And where your fear is, that's where your task is. And I remember coming across this and thinking, okay, I don't understand you now. Really, you've lost me now, Mr. Jung. I don't understand. Fear is something that the amygdala helps me to run away from, fight, hopefully not freeze. I don't understand. And then I put more thought into it, and I've created this. Which platform are we diving from? I believe that human beings, we work from two bases, either from the fear platform or the safety platform. And the fear-based platform is our go-to. Not only and Mareka, I listened to your burnout podcast where you were talking about the amygdala and all of that, and the limbic system. I love it. I talk to my clients about it all the time. But yes, that we are designed, our brains are designed to live in this hyper-vigilant, let's find out where the fear is. So the self-judgment comes out, the self-criticism, the negative self-talk. Now, the negative self-talk, there's a whole committee that convenes in our head, in our minds, and they're the ones that feed the negative self-talk to us. They're the ones that live in the shadow side. So they're the ones, I always think of them as those, it's just gone from my mind, the Harry Potter, you know, the Death Eater, or the whatever, those dreadful cloaked things. I've forgotten. My kids will kill me. Anyway, those things, they very much like that. They feed you with all the negative stuff, and they give you all the reasons why you can't do something. And that self-doubt, can I do this? Can I not do this? And your confidence does a whole deep dive into that icy water of the fear-based pool. Now, that negative committee is there. They've got a misguided mandate. They're there to try and keep you safe. They're there to say to you, Debbie, do not go on the Coaching Hour podcast, because what happens if you make a big fool of yourself? What happens if somebody doesn't like Carl Jung? What happens if somebody doesn't like the way that you speak? What happens if somebody doesn't like the fact that you're going to wear big earrings? All of that self-doubt. What happens if you don't make sense to somebody? That's the negative committee. They're sitting there. And when that anxiety starts welling up in me, which is a friend of mine, which is very uncomfortable, don't really like that friend, but it's there. It's fear with energy. when you've got that anxiety, it's fear with energy. And yes, I told Mareka in about 4 emails. It started with I'm a tad nervous to I'm very nervous to go on your podcast. I have been binge watching all your podcasts and now I'm even more nervous. But we'll get to self-authorization as to why I'm here, even despite the fear. But when you feel that anxiousness, it's about taking a moment to sit in that discomfort and say, I'm in the fear pool. And why I'm in the fear pool? I'm in the fear pool because this actually means something to me. This is important to me. And at the bottom of the fear pool, there's always opportunity. No, we don't have to drown to get to the opportunity. But what I mean by the bottom of the fear pool is that we've got to go through the layers. Because what happens is when we look at something that we're scared of, for instance, let me talk about coming on the podcast today. We just say, no, I'm scared. I'm scared I'm going to make a fool of myself. We leave it there. We don't go deeper. And it's when you go deeper, you can find the opportunity. And when you find the opportunity, you are able to move into the safety pool, which is warm. There's self-compassion there. I am doing the best that I can. I am passionate about the work that I do. I have put in the research. For me, my interpretation of true self-confidence is self-trust. I've been doing this for almost 12 years. I actually do know what I'm talking about. Preparation. I prepared all of this for you guys today. And then, of course, resilience. Resilience is the key to life. It's getting back up and doing it. So when you've moved over into that safety base, it's warm, it's lovely, there's a cocktail or two there. Not really. It's that healthy sense of self. Self-acceptance is really important. Yes, I am large and larger than life, but I've learned how to, as I said, tone it down and self-regulate when I need to. And then most importantly, I self-authorize. Who said I could be on this podcast apart from Mareka? Me. I did. I self-authorized and said, I'm gonna do it. Scared, but I'm gonna do it. And that's when you have the heightened self-confidence.
The thing is, when you don't accept yourself, that's when you drop balls, because then you seek approval from others and you become vulnerable, and then you get exploited and you get abused, and that's you're the absolute target for abusers and narcissists and psychopaths, and it's like a nice green light for them. Woo, let's go and target that one.
Oh my goodness, 100%. And that's why I talk about that vault of self-knowledge, that looking at what is in your rock of self-knowledge. And we pivot on it. Now, before COVID, I probably would have spoken about the foundations, but COVID, let's face it, wiped all foundations away. So it's that rock of self-knowledge. And remember, I said when we knock ourselves down, when we get knocked down, and we do knock ourselves down because it's how we interpret the influence in. So when we get knocked down, we can right ourselves without external validation. We can actually dig deep into ourselves and know what is there and stand up and carry on and be resilient. So for instance, if somebody says to me, Debbie, we're not quite sure about your work ethic, I just like, okay, that's a perception issue. I need to just work on that perception. So I know I have FOMO and I am passionate about what I do. So I at times work myself beyond what I should work myself. And I have Cassie in the business who every now and again says, Deb, you need to take some time off because I love what I'm doing. But when you're not aware of who you are and pretty much in that persona identification place, that's when you will fall for everything. You're right, Mary, absolutely right. When you don't know who you are. Yeah. Okay, so this quote I found, and I'd already done my homework and my own thinking on ego states. So I've retrofitted this quote into my ego work that I've done because it really fitted so well. So he says that the ego keeps its integrity only if it does not identify with one of the opposite sides and if it understands how to hold the balance between them. This is possible only if it remains conscious of both at once. Didn't make sense to me the first time I read it, probably. However, I had already done this work. And I talk a lot about, in coaching, optimal functional range. It's about where are we going to be able to function the best. Everything outside of that, we need to be self-aware, and we need to bring ourselves back to optimal functional range. And the optimal functional range for a healthy ego state is confidence, self-assurance, self-authorization, balanced sense of self, which happens to be exactly the same as how I described the pool of safety. When we have a small ego, so low self-regard, we don't think very much about ourselves, self-degradation, we put ourselves down. I'm famous for putting myself down. I'll make all the jokes in the world about myself that are not very unflattering, which I've learned over the years to really minimize, because many a truer word is said in jest. Self-flagellation, where you beat yourself up, you've made a mistake, you've done something wrong, and you beat yourself up, guilt, that shaming, that all happens with the small ego state. Fixation on growth focused feedback without the growth mindset. So you're fixating on that, as you said, Paul, that 1% of the people at the restaurant, those 1 or 2 lines in the feedback. And I've done it. I've actually done it. I'm embarrassed to say it, but I've done it. I had to give feedback to the partner group at one of the divisions I worked within at one of the big 4. And I had done, through the business, I had done feedback that was anonymous. So we had run it through the business, and I got all the feedback on my coaching. Was it working for people? Wasn't it working? Did they want more? What did it? And there was 8 pages of phenomenal feedback, the most amazing words that I would read and I would think, wow, they're talking about me? That's amazing. I love that. There was one that was damning, that actually called me dangerous, that actually said, because I don't have a full psychology background, I'm dangerous. And when I gave the feedback to the partners, guess what I did? I fell into the own trap. I had that feedback in red at the start of the 9-page document. And I was practically in tears, a grown-ass woman, practically in tears. And I'll never forget 2 of the partners just shaking their heads and just saying, that's 1 of 8 pages. And their gentleness and their empathy for me in that moment just snapped me back into reality, and I was able to ground myself. But I was practically in tears in a director meeting. Humiliation of note. But I was so upset about that, and so dumbfounded, and I'd beaten myself up so much. I'm not dangerous. It's okay. I've realized that I'm not. I've added extra research in some. I'm fine. Also overly concerned with the opinions of others, defensiveness, and feelings of inferiority. And then we've got the other side, which is also unhealthy. That's when the ego has gone on a different tangent. And it's that arrogance and that swagger, that righteousness, that need to be right, that elevated sense of self, the grandiose, not open to growth focused feedback, overly concerned with the opinions of others, feelings of superiority. Now, we can all move between these different states. I can go into the big ego state, put me on the road with a couple of taxis, and you'll see me with that irrational need to be right. How dare you do that? But, you know, I naturally gravitate and have in my life to the unhealthy small. And it's about reminding myself, go back to that healthy, be sure of who you are. And as you said, Mary, it comes with a lot of self-acceptance. And it's looking at some of the stuff that we don't want to look at. Some of the stuff that, sits in the shadow side and we don't want to face. But we do need to. When we shine a light in there, that's when we can marry every bit of ourselves together and become a whole person. And so I'm just going to leave you with 2 of my quotes that I've created. And yeah, I'd love to hear your feedback.
Do you think that in everyone's lifetime, do you think that they eventually face their shadow, or do you think people die without facing their shadow?
Yes. And I have a person that's very close to me, who is in latter years and will and has never and will never face their shadow side, for sure. And it has come out in bitterness. It has come out in disappointment. It has come out in a life unfulfilled and deep, deep sadness. And that for me is tragic. So yes, absolutely, absolutely. And, you know, because first of all, people aren't exposed to all of this work. And second of all, it's hard work, even when you are exposed to it. You have to be so courageous to do this. And to sit and look at yourself without judgment, without criticism, with self-compassion is really, really difficult.
Yeah. Not everybody gets it, you know, and that's an acceptance, I think, that as a coach, you need to come to, understanding and knowing, you know, much
Yes.
like drug dependency, there are some incredible
Yeah.
stories and
Yeah.
people who beat
Yeah.
their addictions. And then there are
Yes.
those who just, with all the tools in the world, with all the caring counseling and the guidance, the old saying of you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. I think that rings true here.
100%.
Debbie, very interesting. Thank you. I think
Thank you.
your positive attitude is something that is evident, and your larger than life personality, with absolutely no reference to what you were referencing. I think it's fantastic, and there's some lovely nuggets in here. I think if nothing else, it's also given me a bit of motivation to read up more on Carl, because yeah, he's a man who makes a lot of sense, or who made a lot of sense.
Hugely. Be careful of that rabbit hole.
Yeah. How long
He's
have
a
I
very
got? Yeah.
the rest of your life. He has got a body of work that is so huge and so deep and so dense. But yeah, he is phenomenal. He really is. One of the things that he does say is to be in touch with your unconscious side is to look into your dreams. Fabulous, Carl. Thanks for that. But I never ever remember my dreams. I remember them when I wake up in the middle of the night and think, the hell am I doing that for? And never think to write it down. Whereas my daughter can remember her dreams and she tells me them every single day. But it's really doing this work, it's just about being quiet with yourself. You know, that uncomfortable quiet where there's no phones, there's no disruption. There's, I don't know, Paul, when you run, do you run with music or do you just run? That
So I
quietness,
don't run with
that's
music.
when,
Sorry, I interjected there. I think there's a bit of a delay.
no.
Yeah,
Okay.
I am a lover of peace. In fact, I'm forever saying to Zena, my wife, that the world is not peaceful enough. And so for me,
Exactly.
aside from the obvious dangers, I believe, of running with earphones and headphones because
Yes.
you can't hear what's
Yes.
going on around you, I love to just get into
100%.
my own world and my own zone when I run. And I think as a result of that, not having the music, yeah. But I guess everyone's
That's
different.
when, yeah, that's when, that's when your mind, that's when your subconscious is going to talk to you. And it's going to talk to you. That's when you have those random thoughts, and that's when you allow those thoughts to come. So that is when you sit in that peace and quiet and sit with yourself or run. Yeah, that's when that work is done.
And if we're doing that, Debbie, and we'd like to be in touch with you, where is the best place to find you? I'm assuming you've got a website, possibly even a
Yes,
LinkedIn profile and so on.
yes. I've got LinkedIn. I have got, it's Roots Coaching.
Roots.
.co.za. Yeah, Roots Coaching. .co.za. There is Facebook, there is Insta, there is Yeah, I think that's
Are
it.
you on TikTok, Debbie? Come on, be honest.
I was, and then I got bored of it very quickly
Okay.
because I tried not to talk about coaching stuff. So I think I've got like 3 videos on there, and then I got really bored because if it's not coaching, I was like, ah, couldn't be bothered with this. So I was on TikTok, but not really, definitely not on Twitter or X or whatever, but yes, on Facebook, Insta. We also have our own podcast called Roots Radio, but we haven't done anything on that this whole year. We've been too busy, which is really shameful. We've got a lovely studio that's set up for it. But the best place to find us is on our website, rootscoaching.co.za. Yeah.
Fabulous. Debbie, thank you so much for joining us for
Thank
this,
you.
chatting about unconventional coaching. We do appreciate your time. Best of
Pleasure.
luck dealing with all the corporates. I think that in itself can be quite challenging, but therein lies the fun, I guess. So good luck with that. And thanks for making time for us to join us on the Coaching Hour. Mary, Marika, as always, thank you for your insights. And for you listening to this or watching it, as you might be right now, thank you for being here. Were it not for you, we'd have no reason to exist. So even if we just touch one person with this session, that for us is good enough. We'd love to touch more, but yeah, that's why we are here. And thank you for being here. We'll see you again in the next one. Bye-bye for now.